Love can blind you to cracks forming beneath your feet. When betrayal hits, it forces you to question everything, your choices, your worth. This story dives into a man's journey through heartbreak, guilt, and redemption. My name is Caleb, 38, a factory supervisor in Pittsburgh. For 12 years, I've been married to Lauren, and we've got two kids, Ava, 10, and Noah, 7. My days are swallowed by the clang of steel, the burn of oil, and night shifts at the plant. Our brick house on the south side is modest, but it's home, or was, until I realized how far we drifted apart. Lauren and I met in college. I was a scrawny engineering major. She was a vibrant art student, always sketching. We fell hard, sharing dreams over diner coffee. After graduation, we settled in Pittsburgh, married, and started our family. I took the factory job to provide, while Lauren stayed home with the kids, picking up freelance design work. I thought we were a team, but I missed the cracks forming. Night shifts broke us slowly. I'd leave at 6 p.m., work until dawn, and get home as Lauren poured cereal for Ava and Noah. We'd trade tired nods, maybe a love you, but real talks faded. I slept days, waking for dinner before heading back. Weekends went to the kids, coaching Ava's soccer, fixing Noah's bike, or hitting the Pittsburgh Zoo. Lauren and I stopped being us. No date nights, no moments just for two. I figured love could survive on autopilot. I saw signs, though: Lauren's sharp sighs when I grabbed my boots, her late-night phone scrolling, her smiles that didn't reach her eyes. I blamed parenting stress. Kids are tough, and my job was brutal. I'd fix it, I swore. Maybe a mountain getaway after a raise. But bills piled up, shifts stretched, and I kept delaying. 6 months ago, it all crashed. A machine failure at the plant sent me home early, around 1 a.m. Lauren was asleep on the couch, her phone glowing. Instinct made me check it. Her passcode was Ava's birthday. Text from Matt, yoga, hit like a freight train. Not flirty, but emotional. Matt understood her pain. Lauren said she felt alone with me. Each word gutted me, tearing through our 12 years. Matt was her yoga instructor. Lauren started classes last year for herself. I supported it, thinking it'd help. Now, I felt like a fool. It wasn't physical, as far as I could tell, but this emotional affair hurt worse. She'd shared her soul with someone else. Things she hadn't told me in years. I stood there, hands shaking, wondering where we went wrong. I didn't wake her. I sat in the dark, rereading texts, each a jab at my failures. Lauren wrote, "Caleb's never here. I'm raising the kids alone." It burned. I worked for us for Ava and Noah's future. Had I abandoned her? I thought I was sacrificing for family, but maybe I'd lost my wife. The next day, I dragged myself to work. Numb, I kept replaying our marriage. Missed anniversaries, quiet fights, moments I wasn't there. I loved Lauren, but didn't know her anymore. Was this my fault? Did I push her to Matt? I wanted to confront her, but feared her answer. Our marriage was fraying, and I didn't know if I could fix it. I kept thinking about our early days, Lauren's laugh, our late-night talks about the future. We'd painted this house together, dreaming of our kids growing up here. Now, we were strangers. I blamed myself for letting the plant consume me, for not fighting for us. But her betrayal still stung. She could have talked to me, right? Instead, she chose Matt. What hurt more, her words or their truth? I sat in the garage that night, staring at our old toolbox, remembering how we'd laughed fixing this place up. Now, I wasn't sure what we had left to repair. I spent the next week in a haze, dragging myself through shifts at the plant while Lauren's texts haunted me. Every machine's clank felt like her words. I'm alone. I'd always seen my night shifts as a sacrifice for our family, but maybe she saw them as me abandoning her. I couldn't unsee her messages to Matt, the yoga guy, pouring out her heart while I was out there grinding for our kids' future. It made me question everything: my worth, my choices, our marriage. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to, but every time I saw her packing Ava's lunch or helping Noah with math, I froze. She was still Lauren, the woman I'd loved since college. But there was this invisible wall now. I'd catch her laughing with the kids. And it hit me. She wasn't laughing like that with me anymore. Was she thinking of Matt when she stared at her phone? The thought twisted my gut, making me feel like an outsider in my own home. Work was my only escape, which was ironic since it was part of the problem. The plant was a beast, 12-hour shifts, machines breaking, guys shouting over the noise. I'd always taken pride in providing and saving for Ava and Noah's college. But now I wondered if it was worth it. I'd trade every overtime check to go back and be there for Lauren. I started noticing things I'd ignored. Her new yoga outfits, how she'd linger after class, the way she'd light up talking about it. Had she been dressing up for him? I hated myself for thinking it, but I couldn't stop. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat in our garage after my shift, staring at the toolbox we'd bought when we moved in. I remembered us laughing, fixing up this house, dreaming of our kids growing up here. Now, it felt like a museum of a life we'd lost. I pulled out my phone, rereading those texts. "Caleb's never here," she'd written. "I don't even know if he sees me anymore." Each word was a weight, pressing down on my chest. I wanted to scream, to ask her why she didn't tell me she was hurting, but I was terrified of what she'd say. I started replaying our marriage in my head, looking for the moment it went wrong. Was it the night shifts? The missed anniversaries? Or was it gradual, like a slow leak we didn't notice until the tires were flat? I remembered our 5th anniversary, when I'd promised a fancy dinner but got called in for an emergency shift. Lauren had smiled, said it was fine, but her eyes were glassy. I should have seen it then. I should have fought harder to be present. The next morning, I watched her at breakfast, pouring orange juice for Noah, teasing Ava about her messy hair. She looked tired but beautiful, and for a moment, I wanted to pretend I hadn't seen those texts, but I couldn't. I needed answers that night. After the kids were in bed, I sat her down. My hands were clammy, my heart racing. "Lauren," I said, voice shaking, "we need to talk about Matt." Her face went pale. She didn't deny it, didn't play dumb. "How did you know?" she whispered, eyes welling up. I told her about the texts, how they'd gutted me. She started crying, saying she never meant to hurt me, that Matt was just someone who listened. "You're never here, Caleb," she said. I felt invisible. Her words echoed the texts, each one a confirmation of my worst fears. I wanted to argue, to say I was working for us dash. But the truth was, I hadn't been there. Not really. We sat in silence, the weight of 12 years pressing down. I asked if she loved him. She shook her head, swearing it wasn't like that, just emotional. But it didn't matter. She'd shared her heart with someone else, and I didn't know how to get it back. I went to bed that night alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd lost her for good. The plant, the kids, our house, none of it felt like enough anymore. The days after confronting Lauren were a blur of pain and pretense. We kept up appearances for Ava and Noah, breakfasts, school drop-offs, bedtime stories, but the air between us was thick with unspoken hurt. I'd look at her across the kitchen table, and all I could see were those texts to Matt, her confessing she felt invisible. I wanted to fix it, to rewind time and be the husband she needed, but I didn't know where to start. Every shift at the plant felt like a betrayal of its own, pulling me away from her again. Lauren tried to explain herself that week. She'd sit me down after the kids were asleep, her eyes red from crying. It wasn't about Matt, she said. It was about me feeling like I didn't matter. She talked about the loneliness of raising kids alone, how my night shifts left her handling everything: parent-teacher meetings, Ava's tantrums, Noah's nightmares. I listened, but each word stung. I thought I was doing right by working hard, saving for their college, our future. But Lauren saw it differently. She saw a husband who'd checked out. I couldn't argue with her. The evidence was there in the years I'd missed. Ava's first soccer goal, Noah's kindergarten play, Lauren's art show I forgot to attend. I justified it all. Bills don't pay themselves, right? But hearing her say she felt like a single mom broke something in me. I kept thinking about Matt, this yoga guy who'd somehow filled the gap I left. I didn't want to know more about him, but my mind wouldn't stop. Did she light up for him the way she used to for me? Did he know her better now? I started obsessing over the details. I'd lie awake after shifts, wondering when it started. Lauren said it was just texts, that they'd talk after yoga class about life, stress, parenting. He listened, she kept saying, like that was supposed to make it better. I wanted to hate Matt, to paint him as some sleazy predator, but Lauren insisted he was just a friend who got the parts of her I'd lost, that hurt worse than any affair I could have imagined. Work wasn't a refuge anymore. The plant's noise, clanging steel, hissing machines, used to drown out my thoughts. Now, it amplified them. I'd catch myself staring at a conveyor belt, replaying Lauren's words. You're never here. My coworker, Dave, noticed I was off. You good? Man, he'd ask. I'd nod, but I wasn't. I felt like a failure, not just as a husband, but as a man. I'd built my life around providing. But what good was it if my family was falling apart? I suggested counseling. Lauren agreed, almost too quickly, like she'd been waiting for me to step up. We found a therapist through a community center, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Ellis. Our first session was awkward. I sat there, arms crossed. While Lauren poured out years of resentment, she talked about feeling trapped, how my absence made her question her worth. I wanted to defend myself, tell her about the overtime, the college funds, the pressure. But Dr. Ellis stopped me. Listen first, she said. So I did, and it was brutal. Hearing Lauren unpack her loneliness made me see our marriage in a new light. I thought we were a team, but I left her to carry the load alone. Still, I couldn't let go of her betrayal. Why, Matt? Why not talk to me? I asked her that in session, and she just cried, saying she'd tried, but I was always too tired, too distracted. I wanted to believe her, but part of me wondered if she was rewriting history to justify her choices. By the end of that week, I was exhausted emotionally, physically, everything. I'd look at Ava and Noah, their innocent faces, and feel this crushing guilt. They didn't know their parents were crumbling. I wanted to protect them, to fix this for them. But I didn't know how. Lauren and I were trying, but her resentment lingered like a shadow. I'd catch her staring out the window, and I'd wonder if she was thinking of Matt, or worse, if she was wishing I was someone else. Counseling with Dr. Ellis became our weekly battleground. We'd sit on her worn leather couch, Lauren twisting a tissue, me staring at the floor, while we tried to untangle 12 years of mistakes. I wanted to fix us, but every session felt like peeling back another layer of how I'd failed. Lauren kept saying she didn't mean to hurt me, that Matt was just a safe space. But safe from what? Me? Our life? It made my chest ache, knowing I'd made her feel like she needed an escape. Dr. Ellis pushed me to talk about my side. I told her about the plant, the night shifts, the pressure to provide. I'd grown up in a working-class family, watching my dad bust his back to keep us fed. Providing was my way of loving Lauren and the kids. But when I said that, Lauren's eyes flashed. I didn't need a provider, Caleb, she said. I needed a partner. Her words hit like a slap. I'd thought I was doing right, but I'd misread what she needed most. I started trying harder at home. I'd cut back on overtime, even though it meant tightening our budget. I'd help with Ava's homework, read to Noah, sit with Lauren after dinner. But it felt forced, like we were playing roles. She'd smile, but it was polite, distant. I'd catch her checking her phone, and my mind would spiral. Was she still talking to Matt? She swore she'd cut contact, but trust was a threadbare blanket now, full of holes. One night, I found her crying in the kitchen. Ava and Noah were asleep, and she was staring at an old photo of us from our honeymoon in Cape Cod. We looked so happy, young, carefree, her head on my shoulder. I miss us, she whispered. I wanted to hold her, to say we could get back there, but I didn't. I was too scared of being hurt again. Instead, I asked if she still loved me. She nodded, tears falling, but didn't say it. That silence spoke louder than any words. I started noticing how the kids were picking up on our tension. Ava would ask why we weren't hugging anymore. Noah clung to me more, like he sensed something was off. I'd lie awake, thinking about them growing up in a broken home. My parents split when I was a kid, and I swore I'd never let my kids feel that kind of fracture. But here we were, teetering on the edge. I'd look at Lauren sleeping beside me and wonder if she was dreaming of someone else. Work was no better. The plant was a pressure cooker. Layoff rumors, broken machines, longer hours. I'd always buried myself in work to avoid problems. But now it felt pointless. Dave, my coworker, kept asking what was wrong. I finally told him about Lauren, the texts. Matt, he didn't judge, just listened. You got to decide what you're fighting for, he said. I wanted to fight for my family, but I didn't know if Lauren was still in the ring with me. In counseling, Dr. Ellis suggested we try rebuilding trust. She gave us exercises, writing letters, sharing one thing we appreciated daily. I wrote Lauren a letter, pouring out how sorry I was for being absent, how I loved her laugh, her strength. She cried reading it, but didn't write one back. I need time, she said. Time for what? To forgive me? To forget Matt? I was trying, but her hesitation made me feel like I was begging for scraps. By the end of that month, I was drowning in self-doubt. I'd see Lauren with the kids, so patient, so loving, and wonder why I wasn't enough. I kept replaying her text to Matt, her saying I'd abandoned her. Maybe I had. But her betrayal wasn't just a reaction. It was a choice. I wanted to forgive her, to move forward. But every time I looked at her, I saw those words. I'm alone. And I wondered if we could ever be us again, or if we were just pretending for Ava and Noah's sake. 3 months into counseling, I was exhausted from trying to hold us together. Lauren and I were still sleeping in the same bed, but it felt like we were miles apart. I'd wake up to her facing away, her breathing steady, and wonder if she was dreaming of a life without me. We'd go through the motions, making breakfast, driving Ava to soccer, reading to Noah, but it was like we were actors in a play, reciting lines for the kids' sake. I wanted to believe we could rebuild, but Lauren's heart didn't seem in it. Dr. Ellis kept pushing us to be honest. In one session, I finally let it all out. I feel like I'm losing you, I told Lauren, my voice cracking. I know I wasn't there, but you went to someone else. How do I trust you again? She looked down, twisting her wedding ring. I don't know, she said. I'm trying, but I'm still so angry. Angry at what? Me? For working too much? Herself, for what she did? She wouldn't say, and that silence was killing me. I started noticing how much I'd changed. I used to be the guy who'd crack jokes, make Ava giggle, tease Noah about his messy room. Now, I was quiet, second-guessing everything at the plant. I'd mess up simple tasks, my mind stuck on Lauren's texts to Matt. Dave pulled me aside one night, saying I looked like hell. You gotta take care of yourself, man, he said. He was right. But I didn't know how. I was pouring everything into saving my marriage, but it felt like bailing out a sinking ship. With a teaspoon. Lauren wasn't making it easier. She'd stopped going to yoga, which I appreciated, but she was still distant. I'd try talking about our day, and she'd give one-word answers. I'd suggest a movie night, and she'd say she was tired. One evening, I found her sketching in her old notebook, something she hadn't done in years. I asked about it, hoping to connect. She showed me a drawing of a woman standing alone in a field. It's how I feel, she said. I didn't know what to say. Was that woman her? Was I the one who left her there? The kids were my anchor. Ava started asking tougher questions, like why mommy was sad all the time. I'd dodge, saying grown-up stuff, but it killed me to lie. Noah would crawl into my lap, asking for extra stories, like he was trying to keep me close. I'd hold them tight, promising myself I'd protect them, no matter what happened with Lauren. But the fear of losing our family kept me up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd already failed. In counseling, Dr. Ellis suggested I focus on myself, not just the marriage. You can't control Lauren's feelings, she said. Work on what you can change. So I started small, taking walks after shifts, listening to music I used to love. I even signed up for a community art class, thinking it might help me understand Lauren's world. I was terrible at it, but it felt good to try something new, to feel like I wasn't just the guy from the plant. But Lauren's resentment was a wall I couldn't climb. In one session, she admitted she blamed me for stealing her life. She'd wanted to be an artist, but kids and my job took over. I was floored. I thought we were building a life together, but she felt trapped. I wanted to scream that I hadn't forced her to stay home, that I'd worked those shifts for us, but I didn't. I just sat there, feeling like the villain in her story. By then, I was questioning everything. Was I the one who broke us? Or was Lauren rewriting our past to justify Matt? I still loved her, but love wasn't enough anymore. I'd see her with Ava and Noah, so caring, and wonder why she couldn't be that way with me. I kept trying cooking dinner, leaving notes, showing up to sessions, but every time she pulled away, it chipped at my hope. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep fighting alone. 5 months in, I hit a breaking point. Counseling wasn't bridging the gap between Lauren and me. We'd sit in Dr. Ellis's office, rehashing the same hurts. My absence, her betrayal, our mutual resentment. I'd leave each session feeling raw, Like I'd been scraped clean, but nothing was healed. Lauren would cry, say she was sorry, but her apologies felt hollow. She'd stopped talking to Matt. She swore. But I couldn't shake the fear that she was just biding her time, waiting for something or someone else. At home, we were roommates, not partners. I'd cook dinner. She'd do dishes. We'd tuck Ava and Noah in. But there was no warmth. I missed her touch, her laugh, the way we used to talk until 2 a.m. Now, our conversations were about schedules. Whose turn to drive Ava to practice, who'd handle Noah's dentist appointment. I'd try to break the ice, ask about her day, but she'd shrug. Eyes on her phone. I didn't check it again. I couldn't bear to, but the doubt was always there. The kids were suffering. Ava started acting out, snapping at me when I asked about school. Noah was clingier, asking if we were getting divorced like his friend's parents. I'd hug him, say we were fine, but the lie tasted bitter. I hated that they were caught in this mess. I'd promised myself they'd never feel the chaos I did when my parents split. But here I was, failing them too. I started spending more time with them, taking them to the park, building forts in the living room. It was the only time I felt like myself. Work was a grind, the plant was short-staffed, and layoff rumors were rampant. I couldn't afford to lose focus, but my head wasn't in it. Dave kept checking on me, offering to grab beers, but I didn't want to talk. I was tired of explaining, tired of feeling like a broken record. One night, I snapped at a rookie for messing up a machine setup, and Dave pulled me aside. "You're not you, Caleb," he said. "Get help." He meant therapy, not for the marriage, but for me. I took his advice. I started seeing Dr. Ellis alone, separate from our couple sessions. It felt weird at first, talking about myself, but it was like unclogging a drain. I told her how I felt like a failure, how Lauren's texts to Matt made me question my worth. She didn't sugarcoat it. "You can't control her actions," she said. "You can only control how you respond." She had me journal, write down what I wanted, not for Lauren, but for me. I realized I'd forgotten who I was outside of being a husband, a dad, a worker. I wrote about wanting to feel alive again, to laugh without forcing it. I started running in the mornings, the Pittsburgh skyline glowing as I pounded the pavement. I'd blast Springsteen, feeling like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. I even kept up the art class, sketching terrible landscapes but enjoying the quiet focus. It was small, but it was mine. Lauren noticed the change. One night, she asked why I seemed different. I told her about therapy, how I was trying to figure myself out. She looked surprised, maybe a little hurt, like I was moving on without her. "I'm glad you're doing that," she said. But her voice was flat. I wanted to ask if she'd ever do the same, but I didn't. I was tired of chasing her. In couples counseling, things got worse. Lauren admitted she wasn't sure she could move past her resentment. "I love you, Caleb," she said, "but I don't know if I'm in love with you." It was like a punch to the throat. I'd been fighting for us, but was she? I left that session and drove to the river, staring at the water, wondering if I was holding on to a marriage that was already gone. I loved her, but I couldn't keep begging her to stay. For the first time, I started thinking about what life might look like without her. Lauren's words in that session, "I don't know if I'm in love with you," kept echoing in my head. I'd been fighting to save our marriage, but it felt like I was the only one swinging. I started pulling back, not out of spite, but self-preservation. I couldn't keep pouring myself into something that might already be dead. At home, we kept up the routine for Ava and Noah, but the silence between us was louder than ever. I'd catch her staring out the window, and I'd wonder if she was imagining a life without me. I leaned harder into therapy with Dr. Ellis. She pushed me to focus on what I could control, my actions, my feelings, my future. I told her how Lauren's affair with Matt, even if it was just emotional, made me feel like less of a man. I'd spent years defining myself by my ability to provide, but now I felt like I'd failed at the one thing that mattered most, keeping my family together. Dr. Ellis didn't let me wallow. "You're more than your mistakes," she said. "Figure out who Caleb is now." I started rebuilding myself, piece by piece. I kept running, feeling stronger with every mile. I'd take Ava and Noah to the Carnegie Museum on weekends, watching their eyes light up at the dinosaur bones. I even got better at my art class, sketching a portrait of Noah that wasn't half bad. These things gave me purpose, something to hold on to when Lauren's distance felt like a rejection. But it wasn't enough to drown out the ache of our broken marriage. At the plant, things were tense, a big contract was on the line, and management was breathing down our necks. I threw myself into work, not to escape this time, but to prove I could still do something right. Dave noticed the shift. "You're back, man," he said one night over coffee in the break room. I wasn't, not fully, but I was trying. I told him about Lauren, how I was thinking of moving out. He didn't sugarcoat it. "If she's not fighting for you, you gotta fight for yourself." I started looking at apartments, just in case. The idea of leaving our house, the one we built for Ava and Noah, gutted me. I remembered carrying Lauren over the threshold, painting Ava's nursery, teaching Noah to ride his bike in the driveway. But staying felt like living in a ghost town, surrounded by memories of a life we didn't have anymore. I didn't tell Lauren I was looking. She'd barely notice, lost in her own world. In counseling, we hit a wall. Lauren admitted she was still angry, not just at me, but at herself for what she'd done with Matt. "I betrayed you," she said, tears streaming, "but I felt like you betrayed me first." I wanted to yell that I'd been working for us, that I didn't deserve this, but I saw her pain, and it mirrored mine. We were both hurting, both guilty, but we couldn't seem to meet in the middle. One night, after a rough session, I told Lauren I was thinking of leaving. Her eyes widened, like she hadn't expected it. "For the kids," I said, "they don't deserve this tension." She didn't argue, just nodded, and that hurt more than any fight. I moved into the guest room that night, lying on the lumpy mattress, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Ava and Noah, how I'd explain this to them. I thought about Lauren, wondering if she'd miss me or feel relieved. I kept showing up for the kids, driving Ava to soccer, helping Noah with his science project. They were my reason to keep going. But every time I saw Lauren, I felt the weight of her words, her betrayal, my own failures. I loved her, but I couldn't keep living in limbo. I needed to choose myself, for once, even if it meant letting go of the life I'd fought so hard to build. Moving to the guest room was like admitting defeat, but it gave me clarity. I couldn't keep living in a house where love felt like a memory. Lauren and I were polite, co-parenting Ava and Noah, but we weren't partners anymore. I'd see her making coffee, her hair falling over her face, and feel this pang of longing for the woman I used to know. But then I'd remember her texts to Matt, her saying I'd abandoned her, and the ache would turn to anger. I was done begging for her to love me back. I found a small apartment near the plant, a one-bedroom with peeling paint but enough space for the kids to visit. Signing the lease felt like cutting a lifeline. I didn't tell Lauren right away. I needed to be sure. I kept up with counseling. But it was just me and Dr. Ellis now. Lauren stopped going, saying she needed space to think. I didn't argue. I was tired of fighting for someone who wasn't fighting for me. Telling Ava and Noah was the hardest part. I sat them down on a Saturday, Lauren beside me, and explained I'd be living somewhere else for a while. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Noah asked if I was leaving forever. I hugged them, promising I'd always be their dad, no matter where I slept. Lauren stayed quiet, her hands clasped tight. Later, she thanked me for taking the lead, but her voice was hollow. I wondered if she felt anything at all. I moved out the next week, taking just a duffel bag and some clothes. The apartment felt empty, but it was a blank slate. I started therapy twice a week, digging into the guilt I'd carried since finding those texts. Dr. Ellis helped me see that Lauren's affair wasn't my fault. Not entirely. I'd made mistakes, been absent, but her choice to turn to Matt was hers. That realization was like a weight lifting, but it didn't erase the pain. I focused on the kids. I'd pick them up weekends, take them to the science center, or just watch movies in my tiny living room. Ava started opening up, asking if Lauren and I would get back together. I was honest. "I don't know, kiddo, but we both love you." Noah would draw pictures from my fridge, little reminders I was still their dad. Those moments kept me grounded. At work, I threw myself into a new project, training new hires. It gave me purpose, something to be good at. Dave noticed the change, joking I was less of a zombie. I even started running again, the Pittsburgh skyline my backdrop. I was rebuilding, not just for Ava and Noah, but for me. I still sketched, too, my art class a quiet escape. I drew a portrait of Lauren once, then tore it up. I wasn't ready to face those feelings. Lauren and I talked when we had to: schedules, school events, co-parenting. She seemed softer, maybe regretful, but she never asked me to come back. Once she called late, saying she missed me. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't. I miss you too, I said. But I can't keep hurting. She didn't push, and that was that. Therapy taught me I'd tied my worth to being a husband, a provider. Letting go of that was hard, but freeing. I started seeing myself as Caleb, not just Lauren's husband or Ava and Noah's dad, but a guy who could start over. I still loved Lauren, but I couldn't live for her anymore. Her betrayal cut deep, but it showed me my own strength. I'd been absent, sure, but her choices weren't my burden. I was learning to forgive myself, even if forgiving her was harder. By the time I settled into my apartment, I felt a flicker of hope. Ava and Noah were adjusting, and I was finding my footing. The pain of Lauren's affair lingered, but it wasn't all I was anymore. I was building a new life, one step at a time. And for the first time in months, I believed I'd be okay.